Hi everyone, it is Jillian here from Connections Early Years Family Center, and it is time for another Friday morning outdoor learning video. For this week, we're going to be learning about a very timely topic, and that is our tree friends. So for this activity, we're going to be going through a couple different ways that you and your little ones can get outside and learn about trees in a hands-on, interactive way, with the goal of really coming to appreciate the role of trees in our environment, as well as learning about all the different types of trees that we have throughout Windsor, Essex, both directly where you live and just in the surrounding area. So that is our goal for today's video, and it's going to be a lot of fun. For our worksheet, we have here a lovely printout that is going to be included in the link below this video, and this is going to be our guide for today's activity, and it is by Evergreen, which is a Canadian organization with lots of great outdoor learning resources. So when you're looking at this one, feel free to look around their website. They have so much great stuff to learn from. But real quickly, we're going to go through this before we actually go and give it a try for ourselves. So getting to know a wooden giant, all we're going to do is go through the web sheet so you and your little ones can pick a tree that they like, or you can pick a couple trees. Again, we'll explore this in depth. But you're going to look at height, touch, smell, sound, all of those sensory experiences that we often emphasize in early learning because they're so important for your child's development. Also looking at different types of branches, the different habitats that this tree provides for wildlife, different signs of life, leaves or needles, and of course, some fun drawing activities at the end. So all of these are going to be what we're going to explore today. As I said, in a couple different environments, and hopefully you'll get an idea of some of the great trees that we have growing around Windsor, Essex, and also how much fun this activity would be to do at home with your own little ones. So with that said, we're going to start exploring some trees. Sometimes it's easy to spot nests up in the trees. As you can see way up high there in the background, there is a squirrel's nest perched rather precariously up in the tree, and it's hard to tell what type of tree it is at this time of year, and there's not a lot of leaves to guess on. But it's also a fun walk to see how many squirrels' nests you can spot before the leaves come into the forest and make it that little bit harder. And then you have to ask yourself and ask your children the question, how high do you think it is? And it's always interesting to see how different their answers are going to be, because for them, remember, the world looks a whole lot different at that height and that age than it does for us all growing up. Another fun way that we can explore our trees is texture. So this one's got that typical maple smooth roughness, but it's pretty strong and it's pretty intact. And again, ask your child, describe it to you, have them tell you what they're thinking, what they're feeling about the texture of this, and let them do their own words and their own critical thinking. And then you can see how maybe this tree, a maple tree, is different than something else. Here we have a different type of tree, and because I'm no tree expert, I'm not really sure what type of tree it is, but quite different, a lot flakier. You can see it's flaking off as opposed to our maple tree, and this one's growing some fungus friends on it. So again, another fun thing to look for when you're out in the forest and you're exploring different types of trees. And again, ask your children those guiding questions. What do you see? What do you notice about trees? Because it's so easy to walk through the forest and kind of be blind to them as you're going through. And really we want to work on those powers of observation. Here we have a tree that has ended its life cycle. It has been felled in the forest, and there's no more active life necessarily growing from the tree. But again, that doesn't mean we can't still learn from it. So fun questions to ask: what do you notice growing on this tree? How is it starting a new life cycle? And as you can see, there's some more fungus that we've been noticing a lot of growing on this tree and using this tree as a host. So again, in the forest, there's so much to learn, and you can really learn about how even when something ceased to grow itself, it contributes to a new type of life cycle, and that's a really important aspect to explore, and trees are a great way to do it. So on our sheets, we have the question of what type of home does this provide for animals? Is it a hawk's nest, a squirrel's nest, something in between, maybe even a hole in a tree that we're not sure what it belongs to? But here we have a different type of nest that you can notice, and that is a duck's nest just below at the bottom there. And it's important to note that while trees aren't always the active nest for something, it's interesting to see what makes its home just below those trees. So in the spring, when lots of water's pooling at their base, you can always notice usually a couple families of ducks and some ducklings swimming around So again, this is a great time to go out and look for your trees and see, again, just how they contribute to our overall landscape. This is the first tree that we're going to look at today with our worksheet. And again, you don't have to know what type of tree it is. I'm not sure what it is, but we can answer some of those questions on our worksheet and really get to know this tree. And I liked this tree because it's right near a nest of ducks that is going to pop up in this video soon. So this tree is maybe, I would say, 30 feet tall. It's not very big, but it's nice and tall. Certainly for a child, it's going to look a little bit taller. Its bark was actually quite smooth. There wasn't a lot of flakes the way that you see on things like maple trees or pine trees. It's actually quite smooth to the touch on a relative term of trees. It has these little green leaves, which is why I like it as well. It's blooming. We're getting some leaves back before most of the trees in this forest here. And the tree leaves smell a little bit like rain, a little bit like mud, but they have a very fresh scent to them. When I crush up my leaves, get it all rolled up and a little bit beat up on my fingers, it actually smells a little bit like a pine tree, and it's not a pine tree, but it has that same very, almost very piney scent to it. So that's what it smells like when it's different when you crush up those leaves in your fingers. I don't see any homes up in my tree. I don't see any animals living here or any signs of it. But when I listen, I can hear birds chirping in and around my tree. And if you take a couple moments just to listen in the silence, it's always a great thing to practice doing with your children and get them to just stop, breathe, do a little mindful breathing, and listen to the sounds around them. So this beautiful tree was our first friend for today that we explored. But we're going to go and look and see what else we can find. For our second tree, we have one of my personal favorite local trees, and that is this beautiful flowering tree. Gives off these tiny little pink blossoms, just like this one, that actually don't have any scent at all, but they're quite pretty to look at. And this tree is maybe only 20 feet tall. Again, it's not really a habitat as far as I can see, and it's too early to really see any insects out. But it's really beautiful to see, and if your child has a love of flowers or maybe just different colors than just green, they might like to check on this tree and see how it changes through different seasons, with it starting with flowers in the spring and maybe just turning into some green leaves in the summer. And then again, what does it look like in the fall? Who knows? So again, checking back on that same tree and really fostering a connection with the tree is a great way to do it. Again, the petals don't smell like very much. And when you crush them up in your fingers, they get just the faintest tinge, but not too much. Again, it's not a very tall tree, but the bark is quite rough to the touch. So it's that little bit different from the other tree that we looked at. And this one, of course, is just so beautiful to watch. So if this is something that you really want to see, foster that sense of connection with the tree that flowers, because even in nature, you're going to find some. Here we have a different type of landscape. We're a little closer to what's really a ditch, but also kind of functions a bit as a stream. And there's lots of wild prairie grass that grows up around here, including trees as well. So it's very diverse. It's very different type of habitat than you might be used to, depending on what part of Windsor that you live in. But this is also a great way to examine trees that are a lot closer to the water and see if there's any differences you can spot. There's definitely a different smell in the air. Even without going to our tree, it smells a lot more like mud and water. But also just seeing what different type of habitats are going to be near these trees, assuming that they might not have as many birds' nests, but again, looking for wildlife that might be coming to a water source. And this is also a great place to listen and get the very soothing sound of water flowing beneath your tree. Some trees like this one make it very easy to tell where there may or may not be an animal making its home here. Here we have a giant hole in the base of the tree, and inside you can see there's some damage to its inner bark, but that's okay because this might very well be a home for anything from squirrels to a type of bird to larger mammals like a fox or a raccoon. So again, sometimes very easy to spot, but something that's so interesting to see, and maybe if you come back to it enough times, at different times of the day, different times of the year, you might be fortunate enough to see a little animal going in there so you know exactly what type of home it is. For this tree, I'm not able to reach its leaves. It looks like it's quite tall, possibly 40, 50 feet. But if you stop and listen, and I don't know if the microphone will pick this up, this is a great tree to sit underneath and listen to the sound of those spring peepers, those first frogs that are doing their song that they do at this time of year that always kind of heralds the arrival of spring. Lastly, the final thing that we're going to look for in our forest, and I'm not going to show you on camera because it's a little bit of a secret, is the things that you can find when you get to know your trees. If you get to know your tree, you come to have a personal favorite tree. My favorite tree happens to be home to a great horned owl nest here in one of our Windsor woods. So again, just remember that as you and your child get out in nature and you come to be very familiar with some of your friends and the homes that they have, remember that it's not just the trees you're going to get to know, it's some of the more amazing wildlife that you'll come to get to know as well. So that is just about it for our video today on getting to know a wooden giant. And again, I hope you saw the trees that were interesting, and maybe you had some own thoughts of trees in your area that you would like to get to know better. And again, I hope this worksheet gives you that little bit of a helping hand to do so. Again, the link is included below. And remember that there are some additional activities on here that we didn't do in this video, such as it's always the time to draw your tree and any observations. This sheet can be brought with you to go and draw your tree in real life, which is always a fun activity. And it also really works on those powers of observation, see what kind of things you notice. Maybe you notice animals in the tree, maybe you notice animals under the tree. And also you can always do a rubbing, including using some seeds in the broader end of a crayon or a pencil, whatever your child's motor skills allows, to do a rubbing of your leaves or your trees, and just enjoy getting a little take-home souvenir and drawing that you can get to know your tree in one season and visit it again and again and draw it all through the year in different weather and different seasons. So that is it for our video today. That was our last part of our activity. I hope you have fun. I hope you give it a try. Remember, the most important thing for this activity about getting to know wooden giant is you're trying to foster your child's connection to nature, getting them feeling as though they're part of nature and they're connected to it and invested in it, which has so many benefits. It's so good for their stress, their physical development, their mental development, so many things that are positive benefits that all come from fostering that connection to nature. So that is our goal for not just today's video, but for each and every day, and I hope you keep that in mind as you give this activity a try. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next week for another Friday outdoor learning video.